LGBT month early. So I'll show you that. The communists in Toronto raised the communist rainbow flag over Toronto City Hall. And so they kicked off Pride Month, or whatever you want to call it, early. And I just think it's a communist show of power. So that's what I think. The flags show conquest, and that's what they're doing. Also, I've changed my headphones. My ears stick out. If you look, my ears stick out further than the headphones did. If you do a comparison, the headphones are sticking out, but like my ears stick out more than the headphones did. And so they were encumbered, they were in there, and they were entombed, and it was intolerable. It was an intolerable situation, so I fixed that situation. These headphones cost like $9. The other headphones cost more than that. So anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. I saw this. Somebody posted this in the Canada Poly chat, and he actually fact-checked last night by going to Google Street View and confirming for everybody in the chat saying, hey, like, check this out. Did you know? And I was like, this is crazy. And I asked on Twitter, is this real? Because it seems crazy. This is from a Reddit thread from yesterday, and it says, are they changing street names in your city too? Are they? Have you had a look around? So Martindale Boulevard becomes Gurdwara Sahib Boulevard and Martin View Road. So which one, right? Is it Martindale, or are we going with Gurdwara Sahib? That's weird, right? That's really strange. So let's go on our Google Street View walk, and here we are at Gurdwara Sahib. Martinvale and Martin View. Martinvale and what is this? The other one, Martin View. Yeah, I got it right. But Martinvale is the one that's been renamed, and weird. That's a very, very interesting thing to do, don't you think? Canada, why are we erasing the street names? I don't think, like, there isn't a Sir Winston Churchill Street. Probably, maybe there is. With my luck, there's definitely a Sir Winston Churchill Street in like New Delhi or something like that. But still, very, very strange, very interesting. What do people? Is anybody watching the show that lives on Gurdwara Sahib Boulevard? No? Yes? What's going on? Is this okay? Can you say anything about this? Is anybody going to be upset about this? If you call your city council and say, could we have our street name back to one name because it's confusing to have two names and also not appropriate? What's the complaint procedure for this, right? I feel like if I emailed city councilors from my city to complain about this, I would get no kind of response at all. I would probably just get blocked. If I got a response, it would be calling me names like grandma killer or bigot or something to that effect. And the reality is most people aren't happy with what's going on. So why is this acceptable? And this acceptable? Here is the Globe and Mail. This is just a weird thing I saw yesterday that kind of fit in here, so I thought I'd put it up. But Globe and Mail says, bigger than just music, Canadians remember Punjabi rapper 2 years after killing. What? Nope. No, we don't. That's the little girl in the back seat kind of giving the weird look like, I don't know anything about this person. Somebody said, I do not remember this or care to learn for the first time. No, we're not interested. That's not interesting to Canadians. Canadians aren't interested in Punjabi rappers as far as I'm understanding it. Okay, we're just not. Joe Warmington says a celebratory statue of Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, has been replaced by an encasement and shoes symbolizing Indigenous children who died at residential schools. Narrator's note: no children died at residential schools in the way we were led to believe they died when the ground-penetrating radar scandal erupted. None. No bodies have been found. And I don't care if that's popular or not popular, but that's a fact. And continuing with Joe Warmington, this has become the monument now. An $8 million search has revealed no remains at Kamloops property so far. So, like, it's not a monument. Like, remove the shoes, unbox the Prime Minister, and let's get on with reality. Like, we are behaving as if we can't solve these problems. And the solution is staring you in the face. Remove the box. And any zealot who says, we have to box him up, remove them from power. This is easy. I could fix a whole lot of problems. Darshan Maharaja is highlighting this. Sanwin says, hey, Darshan, any knowledge of this new scam where kids age 3 and above can get a student visa leading to a permanent residency? If true, Canada is becoming the world's biggest sucker. So this is an Indian guy reporting that Canadians can access this student visa for underage underage dependent children. That's what I mean by underage children. So here's this video. Here we go.
My name is Nandan Rao. I'm 9 years old and I study in class 4th. Today I've got my Canada study visa along with my parents. I'm very happy. Thank you, Amex.
बहुत बढ़िया लग रहा है मेरे बच्चे का वीज़ा है गोइंग टू कनाडा थैंक यू सो मच एमिक्स
माइनर स्कूलिंग वीज़ा होता है सर ये 3 से 19 साल तक के बच्चे कनाडा बोर्ड्स में पढ़ने के लिए जाते हैं और पेरेंट्स बच्चे के साथ जाते हैं बच्चे की टेक केयर करने के लिए वहाँ पे पेरेंट्स
I think she's in. We're going to Canada. So I think that's the gist of that one. So that's pretty crazy. Darshan says, my preliminary inquiry says that this is true. All public schools have DLI status, so they can accept minor foreign nationals as students. Parents of the students can get tourist visas, and once here, they would have to obtain LIMA to be able to work. But as we know, that's pretty easy. So, tentatively plausible. It's a plausible thing that is happening. If so, we as Canadians are being taken for a ride, and we're paying for it with higher taxes and carbon taxes and all sorts of other things, inflationary taxes, competition between supply and demand driving up the price, like competition for housing because of supply and demand driving up the price. We're paying for this. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, oh, well, things would be, just the same if we didn't do that. No, you'd have a lot more money in your pocket because the printing money wouldn't be necessary. The competition for housing wouldn't exist, so they wouldn't have the ability to charge more. There are a lot of consequences to this invasion that seem hidden, but if you think about it for 5 seconds, they're not hidden. They're right there. Harrison Faulkner is responding to Curtis. Curtis says, serious question. Where do white teenagers work now? I swear 10 years ago, entry-level jobs were done by kids in the neighborhood you knew. Now all those jobs are done by immigrants in Canada, mostly Eastern Indians. Nothing against them, but just curious where all the white kids went. DEI hiring. So if your government is going to pay $5,000 up to 50% or $10,000 up to 70%, then in a year, they're anticipating that $10,000 is the 70%. So places like Walmart, instead of hiring a teenager, will hire somebody who they're getting a break on the cost of that worker from who? You and me, because there's one taxpayer. So the government gives that $10,000 break for 70% of the wages, and Walmart looks at that and says, I'm going to hire not Canadians, or I'm going to hire this class of people that the government has decided have this benefit, because anybody else, I have to pay that $10,000 full. Whereas if I get this new worker with this thing attached to them, the government pays 10 and I pay 7, and I get that worker for, $17,000 over the price of that, over the time period that they work. And in a year, that's a part-time job. You know what I'm saying? So that's a part-time job that a teenager doesn't get, right? And we subsidize that teenager not getting that job. We're doing that with our tax dollars, creating that wackadoo incentive, okay? That's bad. It's bad, and people don't understand it because it seems hidden, but it's not hidden. Harrison Faulkner says, everyone can see this is happening. Some will say it out loud. Others will deny it by saying that white kids are just lazy and refuse to work. Ooh, interesting take, Harrison. Successive governments have created the conditions for this depressing future. Canada's youth deserve better. Why are we always like piecemealing people out? Everybody deserves better. We deserve a country where we get to decide what we do with the money, and incentivizing non-citizens, incentivizing these minority populations to have work over top of a majority population leads to negative outcomes on the whole, except for the population you're targeting. And we deserve better. As a country, we deserve better. Canada's youth deserve better. Everybody deserves better. And we're not going to get it unless we demand it. And even if we demand it at this point in time, we have a whole lot of work to do in order. It's like walking into a kitchen and the roast dinner is still in the fridge, in the packaging. The meat has been thawed, but it hasn't been cooked. You can demand a roast dinner all you want, but you're 4 hours away from it at best, right? We've got work to do is what I'm saying. The roast is in the fridge. We're effed if you want dinner right now. But if we do some work, so like let's get the roast out, let's put it in the pan, let's turn on the oven, let's do the basic things that need to get done for this friggin' roast dinner, right? Because you can't call it's Christmas I guess, in this analogy, and you can't call the restaurant to get it done for you, right? We got to fix our own roast dinner, right? Today, anyway, and we got to fix our own damn country, and nobody's going to do it for us, right? If we're standing in the kitchen demanding a roast and it's in the fridge, ain't nobody going to make it for us. We've got to do it, unfortunately, right? City News says a Ukrainian family that came to Canada to escape the war is having second thoughts about their new home as they struggle to make ends meet. Yeah, well, I'm having second thoughts too there, guys. But, I don't have a Ukraine to go back to, war-torn or not. Melissa says, there you go, a Canadian-Ukrainian family, I think they're just Ukrainian, who came to Canada is now considering going back to their war-torn country of Ukraine because Canada is too expensive and or expensive to live and survive in. My dog eats jeans says, yeah, they report on the immigrants struggling in Canada to survive financially, but not the Canadians who are struggling. Shake my head. Go back home then. You got your incentives from the government. That's what they're actually doing. Let's be honest. This war can't be that bad, right? Yeah, if they look at Ukraine and they're like, do you know the price of milk in Ukraine's like $3? It's $10 here. $6. Ridiculous. So they go back to the Ukraine for the price of milk, right? So, and I wonder how the supply of chocolate cereal is doing in war-torn Ukraine. I'd love to know. If somebody knows, let me know. That would be interesting. That would be an interesting anecdote, right? How bad can a war get before they pull the chocolate cereal? Is not Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops still available? I feel like Fruit Loops would be my fallback. They smell delicious. They're ridiculously delicious smelling. Okay, Holly Dome says Canada's IRB Canada Board has a backlog of 180,000 illegal immigrants and asylum seekers asking to remain in Canada. Officials disclosed at a Senate committee meeting. Good God, said one senator. Yeah, that's an understatement. Do these people not know? Like, they should watch my show. It's worse. It's even worse than what I'm saying. Like, not to say I try and sanitize the news or anything like that, but some things seem plausible, but real black-pilled, like real hopeless kind of like, you're never going to do anything about this. You're in a hole and it's only getting deeper and now somebody's throwing dirt on you and, blah, blah, blah. So I try not to focus on the black-pilled take of things. But if you did focus, if you wanted to wallow in how bad things really are, it's real bad, right? Like, the debt alone, people say, oh, well, Justin Trudeau racked up more debt than every other prime minister in history. That's bad, okay? That's real bad. So not to say I'm laughing at this, but crying with Mark for an hour just wouldn't work out as a show. It just really wouldn't work out. And being angry all the time, sometimes I get angry and it's genuine. Like, I am angry about this, but sometimes we're so screwed. We're so screwed that you either laugh or cry. And I choose to laugh ironically. So it's one of those things. And so the Senate people either have their heads buried in the sand or their checks so high that they just can't possibly see the corruption, or they honestly don't know. And I can't believe that they honestly don't know. Like, if you're a senator of the country, you probably like the country and you're probably, I don't know, got your finger on a pulse or two. And, I've heard about the food bank lines. I've heard about the car theft. I've heard about the, open and closed, or like the revolving door prisons. Like, there's so many things that are going wrong. You'd think that they'd have a friggin' clue, right? Good God. Well, welcome to the friggin' game, dude. Very annoying. Germany's woke it up, right? I almost started the show with this song. It's very catchy. Apparently, Germans are driving by foreigners singing this catchy song. It reminds me of Crazy Frog. Like, I could believe that this is a Crazy Frog song. And Europe went wild for Crazy Frog. Do you remember when Crazy Frog was like the #1 charting song and people were like in the clubs dancing to this? Here we go. When the beat drops, man, like I could see a club in Ibiza going crazy. Right? That's how you say that, right? Ibiza. So Germany's singing out Xander out. Germany for Deutschland, out Xander out. And so here's Laura Loomer, and she showed up in Australia. I think it's Laura Loomer. Wait, let's double check here. I think it's I thought this was Laura Loomer, but I could be wrong. But this is an influencer who's gone to an Australian no-go zone. I don't think it's Laura Loomer anymore. She doesn't look like her. I was listening to it, so apologies. She goes to an Australian no-go zone, and she tries to go into the mosque, and they say, we strongly recommend you not go down there. And one of the things that is a hallmark of the modern era is if somebody is planning to be violent against you because of your beliefs, then they tell you don't go down there, you're going to cause a problem. And the whole, how it used to be is, you can't be violent regardless of my beliefs, regardless of your beliefs, and regardless of if our beliefs clash. You have to be peaceful and I'll be peaceful, and we'll solve our conflict with words. You can't be violent if I'm standing in front of your place of worship, and I can't be violent, vice versa. Violence is not how we solve our problem. And now the people who are threatening violence are saying those people who are coming here believing things that are different than me are provoking me through their presence, and so I'm justified in committing violence. And that is absolutely not how our country used to be, how the West used to be. So here's no-go zones in Australia, completely turning on its head the way Western ideals used to run. It's very, very interesting. But somebody made the comparison as well. 15-minute cities, 15-minute zones. Don't leave your zone. If you leave your zone, what's going to happen? Well, it would keep you in your zone if you had to go through a Muslim zone or a couple of Muslim zones and maybe a couple of, I don't know, are there any other violent religious groups? A couple different Muslim sects, right? You stay in your zone or those people will stone you to death, right? Because you're an infidel there. But here, live and let live, right? Nobody's going to throw you off a rooftop here, right? But over there, they might. So you stay in your zone, right? It works very well with 15-minute cities. Okay, here's not Laura Loomer.
I'm headed to an area called Lakemba in Sydney, Australia, and it's supposed to be a very high Muslim population area. As soon as we arrived in Lakemba, things were tense. There were heads turning, people coming out of shops to look at us and find out what we were doing. Men started yelling in Arabic across the street at us. As we went to go for a walk to the local mosque, a very high-ranked police officer came up to me and begged with me, do not go there.
Is it?
Speaking.
Inspector Rick Ages from Campsie Police.
Yep.
I've been informed that you're intending to attending the Lakemba Mosque. Is that correct?
I actually have no intentions of attending. I was just planning on walking through the streets and seeing how the culture was here.
Yes?
Yep.
Are you satisfied with that?
Yep.
So where do you intend on walking to now?
I was just going to walk out and check how the mosque was.
Check where the mosque was?
Yep. Would I not be allowed to attend if I wanted to?
I've got grave concerns that you may cause an imminent breach of the peace down there, so I'm asking you not to attend.
Why would I cause a breach of the peace?
Because it's highly religious down there.
So would it be me causing a breach of the peace, or would it be the people there?
Well, your presence may cause them to be offensive and be objective to your attending there.
And so that would be them being offended by me?
Can you not interview me?
No, you fear people will be offended by me.
No, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And you're committing a breach of the peace. I've given you that warning. And if you do that, you may be breaking the law. Do you understand that?
Yep, I understand it. I perfectly understand. As far as I'm concerned, you have Sharia law here. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah, we'll go to jail if we talk to people. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm concerned, they have Sharia law here. I was told if I talk to people, even if I put all my cameras away, I can't criticize Islam to people here on a public street in Australia, in Sydney. Don't tell me you don't have no-go zones. Don't tell me this is a multicultural country. Lakemba is a monoculture, and it is one that does not allow critique of Islam. It is one that does not allow free speech because it is conquered land.
Interesting, right? You're not allowed to criticize Islam. I think that fundamentally, imagine there was a sect of Christianity that was violent or whatever, and they had control of an area, and if you criticized what they believed, then they would have a problem with you to the point where they were feeling justified in breaching the peace, and the police would come up and say, these Christians are right, you should really be quiet about it, what you're talking about. Right? Would that happen? Is that allowed? Christianity doesn't call for that, but I think that Christianity is not doesn't have the same tenets in the same way Islam does, right? So they don't call for that. But it's very interesting that that's the end result, right? Is it okay to say the person who has a different belief and whose presence is offensive to violent people, is it okay to tell that person you're not allowed to go there because those violent people will be upset by you? I don't think so. That's a very slippery slope, and it's a bad one. C Reason says, not only do the Democrats hate America and Americans, they hate our military more. Here is a U.S. Navy admiral saying foreign spies are showing up weekly at U.S. naval bases, and they have to keep turning them away. And they're under the guise of students, but they're not students. So they're spies, right? So how many of those were attending Canadian universities? How many of those were working in the Winnipeg lab specifically? Probably quite a few. Here is this exchange. Just a minute. Here we go.
Some of them just crossed the border. What's going on?
Well, you know, this thing of our military bases getting penetrated by foreign nationals is happening more and more.
Penetrating the cabinets. Interesting choice of language.
Or, you know, this is something we see probably 2 or 3 times a week, where we're stopping these folks at the gate with
a week.
A week at least, and this is just Navy alone, where we're seeing folks try to come in, and usually the cover story is, and I'm a student, you know, I'm here, I'm an enthusiast, I want to see the ships, that type of thing. We have to turn them around, and typically we get NCIS involved with those, and we get biometrics when possible. But yes, there's been an uptick in that.
Do they have passports? Do they have?
A lot of times they have passports.
Papers?
They have papers, yes. But they're in no way, shape, or form authorized to be on our base. And it's really hard for us to tell the underlying motive for these type of cases.
Wow, that's stunning.
It is.
It's got to be a concern.
This is Russian, Chinese. It comes from all these different nations.
There's a Russian Chinese family, and the kids were just, you know, weekly, they just keep coming back. I'm sure it's very concerning. Here is, we're getting into economy, and as I was talking about before, the price of everything is inflated, but the price of, or how much you're making every year is not getting all that much higher, right? Like, it's certainly not inflating with the price of a house, for example. And I wanted to make sure that this was Canadian, and I checked out Martin's profile, and he's a Canadian investor guy, and he's out of Calgary, and he says Canada's broken. Buying a home in 1985 versus 2022. 2022 numbers are lower, and this is $468. I thought the average price of a house now is like $700,000, right? So the average price, or the average salary that people are making in 1985 was $23,620. That's like $2,000 a month, okay? And that did everything, right? If you had $2,000 a month, you were doing pretty okay, right? And your housing prices back then, $83,000. Somebody said, I'd rather spend 15% at 1985 prices than 4% at 2022 prices. Anyway, 2022 prices $468, and you're making $74,000 a year. So $74,000 a year is what, 3 times? So like $6,000 a month, right? So, right? It's not enough. It's not enough. So it's still not enough to cover off the $500,000 loan that you're going to need for your mortgage. So invasion, and it is not good. It's not good for anybody, and people are waking up to it much more than they were before. But we've got a roast to make, man, and we're not getting started on it. We're just standing around demanding roast dinner, and like, we're not realizing that we're the ones who got to do it. We are the ones who start, what is it called? Peeling the carrots? Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's move on to cash money, and how much everything costs, because like I said, housing is costing more. And Dan McTeague is responding to Dave. Dave says more than 50 cents of every dollar goes to interest costs. This is federal, larger than our contribution to pensions or armed services. So that's a problem. The inflationary effect is a problem. And Dan says, I've spent over a decade in Parliament having to vote for austerity measures that affected social program delivery and impacted far too many, thanks to the irresponsible spending decisions of previous governments. We are sleepwalking towards another financial crisis. I don't know how anybody can think that if we couldn't solve, say, homelessness for our own population within Canada, and the water crisis, just getting people enough clean drinking water for the whole population of the country, why can we wholesale import the population of whole big cities like Calgary or provinces like PEI and expect that those people will just, find a place to live, et cetera, and have no problem? If we can't manage our own population at like 35,000, 35 million, why does growing it to 41 million help us in any way at all? Because the people who are paying taxes at 36 million people in the country are still the ones paying taxes at 41 million, right? We've just got a bigger burden now, and our taxes don't buy as much because of the idiots running the economy. So sleepwalking towards a financial crisis, the population doesn't understand. Just like somebody who's trying to lose weight doesn't understand how their lunch contributes and the way they're snacking, etc., contributes to their overall outcome. The population doesn't understand how the media, their apathy, the control that whoever has over the elections has it, the control over the media as well. That it's wrapped into the media, but the censorship all works together, right? It's not just your lunch that makes you fat, right? It's not just, or makes you too thin, or whatever your problem is. It's not just the one thing, right? It's a combination and a culmination of everything all together. So the apathy works with the propagandized media, and the politicians depend on the apathy and the propagandized media, and they focus on things that their rulers want them to focus on, like the globalists who run them, not the citizens who elected them, right? Who elected them, because it's not a real election that we're dealing with. So we're not sleepwalking. We're victims in this, but still victims. Like, it's a bad outcome, right? Look at Bruce Wayne's parents, right? Like, you're victims of crime, right? And it's not like, it's not like Bruce got made whole. He became Batman, right? That's not a great outcome. You're a billionaire's kid, man. Like, you shouldn't be fighting crime, right? So I'm sure what I'm saying is the negative outcomes of crime, the negative outcomes of being a victim, don't excuse us from having to make the roast. Like, they don't excuse us from that job needing to be done. Right? It just needs to get done. That's just what it is. So, maybe that's why he became Batman, because there's a job there. Somebody's got to do it. Nobody's doing it? All right, fine, I'll do it. The food professor says, Monday morning grocery shopping in Berlin, Germany. Despite Germany experiencing a 21.3 food inflation rate in March 23, over 10% higher than Canada's peak food inflation, many products remain cheaper. The reason that's true is because they're lying about inflation. They take a package of goods. They use that package of goods to set the inflation rate. They take things out that are volatile. Peanut butter was not volatile, so they kept it in until peanut butter started increasing by 10 and 15%. So they removed it. You see what I'm saying? Brussels sprouts, not volatile. Put it in for peanut butter. I think they were trying to use protein, but you see what I'm getting at. Put farmed tilapia in for peanut butter. No inflation, everybody, except that the things that you eat actually have inflation. Maybe Germany's just being honest in their reporting, or more honest than Canada. He says, more shopping, bread, meats. Look at the price of yogurt and butter. So the price of yogurt is $1.99 or €1.99. The $1.49, $1.29. The butter, $1.79, $2.49 for, it's a half pound, $5 for a pound. $2.99, $1.99. $2.39. I don't think it's a full pound there though. It could be a full pound for $1.79. The blue one right there, right in the middle. Yeah, that could be a pound. Yeah, it could be a pound. Some of them look like half pounds. The gold one in the top, on the middle section, 3 from the left, looks like a pound, and it's $1.79. So the prices are much cheaper. Holy smoke, food professor. He got Nesquik. He got chocolate cereal. He's watching this show. So chocolate cereal is there. $3.79. I can get 3 for $10. So that's pretty good. Oh, they've got, is that just chocolate cereal, German chocolate cereal brand chocolate cereal? I want to try it. Okay. So it's interesting, the food. It's cheaper in some areas, but what I found in the States too was some things were super cheap, and I was shocked, like the milk. And then other things were more expensive. And then you add the exchange in, and you're kind of paying about the same. So like the inflation really is everywhere. But again, it is a coordinated plan to make the inflation everywhere. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful